Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in once again to the dungeon of the Doctors of Doom, where I am your host, Alex the Shark Sparks, and joining me this week, we're back in action, Mitchell, the Dyson Master Black, and of course our producer, Vinny World Traveler Santucci. Say hello to everyone out there, gentlemen.
Hello.
How's it going, folks? Good
Super
to be
great
home, I
nicknames.
guess.
Totally
And
didn't just
and,
make
and
this up on the
also glad
spot.
to know that I'm also glad to know that Mitch has such an affinity towards $700 Dyson vacuums. This is like a new thing.
I mean,
I
we
did
started
not
our
know.
meeting with a 5-minute discussion about Mitch's vacuum, so I figured why not? Anyway,
I
yeah, we've been gone for a
don't
couple
even
of
think
Yeah.
that's close to right. I said I got the vacuum that Chris got. So if
right,
Yeah.
anyone's the Dyson master, it'd
and
be
then you started
Chris.
talking about the features of your vacuum.
No, I didn't. I just said there was like a shampoo thing on the end of it. That's why I liked it.
It's nice that it's a conversation about vacuum that doesn't revolve around Mitch and Aaron Rodgers for a change.
Well, now you've tied it in. All right, we're back to basics. Yeah, we didn't do a podcast last week. A couple of sick people, a couple of traveling people, and a couple of just I didn't want to do it by myself situation. So we're back now. Not a ton has happened in the world of football. There have been some trades that we can discuss, and then there's some stuff in other sports. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to start it off with a bit of a rant. As a Mavericks fan, I just don't want to watch basketball anymore. Let me tell you how bad it's going. So it's gone from bad to worse. So, the Mavericks made arguably the worst trade in NBA history when they traded away Luka. And so they lost Luka. They've lost the fan base. The guy they traded for gets hurt, which is what he's known for. Then they're like, hey, you know what we're going to do now that we've pissed off our fan base and people are canceling season tickets? We're going to increase season ticket prices. So in the wake of people being angry, protesting, and canceling tickets, and also some people got kicked out of the arena for holding up fire Nico Harris signs. After all that happened, he's the GM that made the trade. After all that happens, they raise ticket prices, and then days after that, Kyrie Irving, the one good player they have left, then tears his ACL, and he's just done. The Mavs are just an absolute trash can fire, and there's no hope of recovery. Thoughts on the Mavericks other than just me lamenting the woes of being a fan?
I mean, what if you don't trade Doncic and you have Kyrie get hurt? Then you still don't have a chance at the playoffs. At least now you could take
But
for a better draft
but you
pick.
have a future. If that happens, you
That's
still have a
true.
future. Right now, they have no future
That's true.
because
That's very true.
as we talked about, no free agents aren't going to want to play for the Mavericks after what they did to Luca. Like they
For
took
sure.
someone who was a local hero, everyone loved, was beloved by his teammates, coaches, everyone, and just shipped him off, and then badmouthed him on the way out the door. That's what really got him. Like it's bad enough that you shipped him off, but like they have taken every opportunity to badmouth Luca. It wasn't like he was a bad person or a bad player. They didn't like him because he didn't make his weight. And like, okay, look, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm trying to claim that I know more about being a basketball player than guys who work in the industry. But even if that's true, going out and bashing your star that you've traded away is not a good look. Free agents see that. They're like, hey, if they can do that to that guy, what are they going to do to me if I have a bad season or if I get injured or if I can't make weight or whatever, right? Or even if I'm good. It's just so 9 months ago the Mavs competed for a championship, and now there's no hope for the next at least 5 years, I would say.
Like the Niners
Yeah.
window opportunity is closing. I think the Mavs window of opportunity closed real fast there.
Yeah, we can transition to the Niners. The Niners shut the door on themselves, which was strange. They have one of the
Yeah.
greatest play callers in our generation decided to no longer call the plays, and then trade away Debo, and then Brandon Ayuk is on the chopping block. So it's like, all right, they're just chopping this team up and shipping it off in pieces, and they're 2 years removed from a Super Bowl. I realize last year was kind of a disappointment for them, but that was kind of a big. That's a real strange pivot they made to go from like, hey, we're in the Super Bowl to, all right, we had one bad season, we're shutting it down, we're rebuilding.
I I think I have a couple things. One on the Kyrie front and the Mavs front. I think the craziest thing about the whole Kyrie thing is uh, on the season he was averaging 36 minutes. For his career, it's somewhere around 33 minutes. Since the Luka trade, he was pushing almost 40 minutes a game, and the league leader was around 37.8 minutes per game. So like you took someone who was injury prone, upped their season long minutes by about 4 minutes per game, upped their career average on minutes by about 6 minutes per game and thought, this is a good idea. We're just going to grind Kyrie into the ground. And then he tears an ACL. I mean, I know that's kind of like the cop-out excuse, um, but I don't know. I don't think you
I
just
was,
push your
I
new
agree,
star
Vinny.
player.
No, I agree, man. I was gonna say the same thing. I just didn't want to pile on to Alex because this would be rough for me right now if I had like I
No,
don't know. It's
I
like
want to hear it. I want to hear it all. Like
no, I mean
go
it's
for it.
literally the equivalence of like LT going to the Jets or something. Like I just couldn't watch the Chargers anymore. It was so hard for me, and like I raged on the Chargers. Like how could you let them go? So like I don't want, you know what I mean? It's all good. So it's like yeah, this I can't believe this is why I've never been afraid to invest my love and obsession into the Lakers because I know they're always going to take care of me
Eventually. Yeah, eventually.
eventually.
Um, and then I will say on the
Well, that's
49ers
because you got the
front as
Mavericks
well.
taking care of you too, Mitch. So
Well, and the Jazz and everyone else in the league and the Memphis
Yeah,
Grizzlies, and Paul
the
Gasol and
Grizzlies.
yeah, and everyone else.
Yeah.
And at one point, it was
I
going to
guess
be the Hornets or giving us
I
Chris
was gonna
Paul. You
say we
know,
could.
yeah,
Well, I mean, isn't Charlotte who we got Kobe from as well? So Charlotte has
yeah.
kind of already helped us out.
Thank you for taking
The
Divock,
Magic and the
Sacramento.
Magic and Shaq. Yeah.
Yeah. So at some
Uh,
point, someone's going to help us out. That's so
yeah.
great.
It is. It is. At some point, there's always a superstar in the LA pipeline. It is pretty. As a Laker fan, I will say, like at some point, you're like, all right, this is. It's a little cheap, you know.
The one thing
But
it is, but the one thing I will say, the funny part about the Paul Gasol trade was everyone's like, "Oh my God, Paul Gasol or Kwame Brown," but we actually gave Kwame Brown and Mark Gasol in that trade. Mark Gasol ended up becoming like a really good player, so that one at least was a fair trade. All the other ones are just like, and then like even if you go to the Shaq going to Miami trade. Like the Lakers should have never gotten that many pieces and that many draft picks. It was basically the Heat giving us potential. And then, but I mean, we didn't use those picks well, so whatever. I'm getting off topic. But yeah, this is definitely not good for the Mavs. And then if you go across town with the Cowboys, you know what I mean? It's not looking a whole lot better, especially with the Micah Parsons negotiations. It's the way Jerry Jones described. I'm going off the rails a little bit here, but the way Jerry
just
Jones
slightly.
described it was basically the way he said it was how do I describe it? It was like, oh man, Micah Parsons is way better than we thought he was gonna be. Like it was almost just like, you know what I mean? Reluctant, like, oh crap, he actually ends up being like one of the generational talent. Now we're gonna have to pay him all this money. Like it's like that's you should be happy you have that player. So I don't think things aren't looking good in Dallas.
yeah, yeah. And then on the 49ers stand front that you mentioned, I I don't necessarily know if I'm ready to say they're packing it in. Uh, I would argue that Debo, ever since his breakout year and they gave him that huge contract, and I would say he's kind of been on a downward trend. And they did
He didn't
draft
even
a
perform well
rookie.
last year. Yeah, go on, sorry.
No, not at all. Or the year prior. I
Oh,
mean,
well,
really. And
go ahead, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, no, I was gonna say, and they did draft Ricky Pearsall in the first, like with their first overall pick, who was
Oh
pretty highly
gosh.
rated.
I mean, he was
So,
pretty good once he
I mean,
recovered from his gunshot wound. But
Yeah.
I think the reason that I say that they're throwing in the towel, if it was just the Debo deal, I would understand. But they shipped off Debo, and they're changing play callers, and they're put Ayuk on the trade block. Now they haven't like shopped him around, but just the GM saying that we're listening to offers, like everyone knows we're always listening to offers. Like only a fool doesn't listen to offers, so you're always listening. So the fact that you put it out there and said it out loud means that John Lynch is letting teams know, hey, he's available, right? You don't say it out loud in the media if you don't want teams to know that he's available. So the fact that they're shopping around what, at the start of last year would have been their number one and number two wide receivers and changing offensive coordinators, that tells me they're throwing in the towel.
So there's two things I think what's going on. One is I think this is tied to the Brock Purdy contract. I think there's a massive, obviously I am not an insider or have insiders, but from the people that I read and trust is that I think they're honestly going to give Purdy upwards of like Herbert Tua money. So he's going to get 40 to 45, and I think Shanahan is vehemently against that. So here's my question that leads me to that is why would he give up play calling to Kubiak, who literally is his only experience is TCU, and before that, I don't even remember the private college Christian. It was like Jesuit or whatever. So like, and the only reason I even knew that is just because I just heard all this information. So it's like he's went from TCU to taking over the greatest play caller. And like one of my, I know Alex loves him. I know I love him. Like that, no, like maybe if like Sean Payton came over or something, or some upcoming, Brian Robinson or whatever who went to the Falcons, and you're try and give him a spot. Like, why would he give it up? Is what I'm trying to say. Is this is his way of either not trying to take credit or trying to deflect on his way out the door. I don't understand how anywhere along the lines. And the second thing I will say to Vinny is I agree with you, Vinny. I think it's a little prolonged the throwing in the towel because they have so much talent on that roster that even if they lose a couple players, if you just forget that they lost those couple players and look at the talent on their roster, they're still one of the top five talented rosters in the league. So it's like, yeah, you're losing Debo, and I have some. I mean, I'd be interested in your guys' thoughts on what Debo is ranked now in fantasy football. But yeah, going back to just the Niners, I think they have too much talent right now to collapse this fast. I think it's still going to be another year. I mean, like, how many teams would still love to have an injured Christian McCaffrey as their running back? It's what I mean. It's still great. That offensive line is still fifth, sixth, somewhere in there. Their defensive line is elite. So. I don't I think it's the linebackers are as well. I think it's just I agree with you, Vinny, that it is, but I'm also going to agree with Alex 100% that this is very alarming. How can Kyle Shanahan give up play calling the Kubiak? There has to be going on some behind closed doors, and I think it's the Purdy contract.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously the pretty and that's why I said if it was just dealing Debo, I would understand because Debo is due to be paid a ton of money. So if you're freeing up cap space to sign Purdy, cool, that's fine.
That's what I think.
I get that, but the fact that after Debo, you're also putting Ayuk on the block. Like if they trade away Ayuk, you're left with George Kittle,
Jennings.
who last year was good, but that's the first year in the last 5 he's played a full season. Ricky
For sure.
Pearsall, who's only played a handful of games with Brock so far, and then
Jennings, right?
Juwan Jennings, who did play well in the 4 games that he was healthy. But that's a
But
guy.
that's my point is
you know what
like
I mean?
if
Like,
you think if but here that's what I'm saying it's a little contradictory. Maybe I didn't explain it well enough. Is that like Shanahan can plug and play the pieces. If he's calling the plays, he probably feels like I can make a Brock Purdy. I can script plays for a Debo Samuel. I can do that. I can find guys in the draft. So why would he give up play calls and be doing this at the same time? That's what I'm saying is like it would make sense if he's trading some of these away. He's like, oh, but I'll sign Purdy to a little bit better deal, but I could just, it's my offense. I can make the players. I can make the line. I can make the stars. Not stepping down and giving it to a first-time play caller who was at TCU 2 years ago. Like what? Something is happening. Like I
Yeah,
don't.
but if you think that Shanahan won't step in as soon as things start to go bad, then that's
and I mean, there's also, I guess,
Why would he
there's
relinquish
also
it
the
then in the
argument that,
first
that
place?
maybe the
Does he
game's
really think this guy can be a better play caller than him? So, like, if Shanahan's just going to step in once it goes bad, why relinquish it in the first place? You really think this guy's a better play caller than you, that you're going to give him the job, and then, oh, wow, it actually went bad, didn't see that coming, and I'm going to take it over? That's alarming to me.
yeah,
Sorry, Alex, go
I
on.
could see that.
yeah. So I'm worried mostly about his self confidence because sometimes the game can pass you by, right? There's some coordinators that they had a great system, and then they tried to ride like Norv Turner, right? Like he was a great offensive coordinator for a while, but the game caught up to him, and it just didn't work anymore. Gus Malzahn in college football, like he had a couple of great seasons because he was an innovator, but then people caught up to it, right? So you can maybe say the game has passed him by
Hello?
with regards to
Yeah.
uh, with
Sorry.
with regards to Shanahan. I don't believe that. But I'm concerned that maybe he or someone in the front office thinks that, and that's why they're making this change, and that's never a good look because if there's a confidence issue in either the coach or the administration, and the players see that, that makes it a lot harder on a head coach. Can you guys hear me, by the way?
Yeah, so you were going in and out for a second for me, at least. I don't know if it was
Yeah,
for
I'm
Vinny as
hoping
well.
that's still recorded fine on my side since it's my computer that's doing the recording. But to all the
I
podcast
have,
listeners, I'm sorry, my internet cut out for a second. But yeah, go ahead, boys.
I know it's great. I do. I have a question for Vinny, and because I am kind of playing both sides of the fence here, I understand Vinny. I'm not taking a stance because I do think the Niners have too much talent to get. But why is he stepping down as play? So, what about Bruce Arians and Leftwich days? Like, Arians was an amazing OC, and he kind of stepped down and gave it to Leftwich, and Leftwich did completely fine, and it was kind of like a dual thing. That makes a little bit more sense because Leftwich had been calling plays for teams for a while, right? Like this is a complete unknown. If Clay Kubiak is just some hidden gem that Shanahan didn't want to lose to another team who's just going to be the next team to take, the next Shanahan disciple or the next McVay disciple, then like then that makes a little bit more sense. And he's like, I just don't want to lose this guy. I'll let him call plays and we can work on it together. Then it's even more to your point that the Niners aren't going to fall off the face of the earth that fast as we think they are. Because it's just more of an Arians and Leftwich thing. Is that what's going on? Because like it's just not enough information right now.
Well, and another thing with the Debo shipping him off, like yes, he hadn't been playing as good, but Debo's a Swiss Army knife. Like one of the reasons that Shanahan was I mean, he's been successful in a lot of different places, but one of the reasons they've been so successful with the Niners, even when they didn't always have the best, quarterback player, the best whatever, because they did this with Jimmy G and others before, is they had a guy like Debo who he can be a wide receiver, he can be a slot receiver, he can line up in the backfield. There's so many things you can do with Debo. And I'm not saying that other players can't do that, but there are very few that have been successful in that hybrid Swiss Army knife role, right? Like, there are some other guys who they tried it with, like Cordarrelle Patterson, who was a decent running back and a super mediocre wide receiver. So, a lot of guys, they try that hybrid role, doesn't work out, but it's worked out really well with Debo, and they've kind of traded away that Swiss Army knife. So what are you going to replace that with now? And maybe they're not going to have a need for that with a new OC, but that's just, I don't know. I just feel like they're losing a lot by making these changes, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I agree overall. I'm more of like on the we'll see standpoint. Like they're still super talented. Shanahan is still there. I'm not too. I mean, if you looked at the Debo trade, like I think pretty sure Washington literally assumed the rest of his contract. So from a cap hit perspective, like they just freed up a ton of cap space, and that's why it was for a fifth round draft pick or something like that. So
yeah, I heard some people complaining that like, oh man, they got less for him than the Panthers got when they shipped off Mingo or whoever it was. It's like, yeah, because they were ditching the $16 million cap hit. That's why they did it. Like, they weren't doing it for the pick.
All right, right. So I agree, soon to see. But when we draft fantasy wise, like, is this going to affect? Let's say you're interested in a late round QB, Purdy. Is this going to affect your where you rank Christian McCaffrey? Like, that's what I'm saying. So, like you say, we'll see, but we're going to have to, make a decision in the next 5 months or whatever of how this is going to affect McCaffrey type stuff. So it's like once the season starts and let's say McCaffrey's back to his MVP self and they haven't really changed much with the play call, and then everyone's gonna be like, wow, well, all that off-season stuff should never listen to. It's always smoke and mirrors. So it's like we're gonna have to make a decision on it. That's the interesting part.
Yeah, so speaking of, so if you can look at my screen here, this is just one website, a lot of websites are different things, but this is a dynasty ranking website. So this is showing all the wide receivers. This does assume PPR, but most leagues use PPR, so I'm going to leave it on PPR. Dynasty wide receivers going into next season. Obviously, we're still in March, so this is really very early, but it is interesting. Brandon Ayuk sitting at 32 right now, as he's still on San Francisco. That could change if he moves teams. And then you have Parcells at 42 and Debo down here at 46. So,
but see, that's what I'm saying is if you buy into more of the which side the we'll see of Vinny's comment. If you buy into the I think before draft comes around or as in the summer comes around that you're going to buy into the Niners are still going to be good this year. Shanahan's still going to be very involved. There's no way Ayuk doesn't climb on that person's board much significantly higher than where he's being drafted right there.
So this is a great segue.
No, I think he should stay at 32 and first of all should stay at 42.
That's what I'm saying is like if you think it's par for the course.
They are ranked appropriately, and we will not discuss otherwise.
Well, hold on. There's a conversation. There's a conversation I need to have after this podcast, and so this is a great segue into that. In the league I'm in with Vinny, the Sleeper Dynasty League, I won this year because I'm awesome. Beat Vinny, of course. But in that league, I am known for making horrendous trades. One of them was I traded away Ayuk for Debo. That wasn't the only part of the deal, but that was the main part of the deal. I needed a wide receiver who was playing this year. Ayuk was on IR, made the deal. Now Debo's effectively worthless to me, and there's a chance to make the swap back. There's some other players involved, so the question is, Do you guys think Ayuk is worth trading for to get back after how bad he played last year and coming off an ACL tear? Sounds like Vinny thinks yes, but what do you think, Mitch?
I forget, how old is Ayuk?
He's young.
He is
26. Okay, so they
26.
have a guy up there who's turning 30 who never plays ever any season, and Chris Godwin, and they have him like 10 spots above Ayuk. So I guess that says how I feel about
Yeah, but
I would have
Godwin's gonna plummet whenever he gets traded or whatever, right? Like that's just because of how well he
gotcha.
played this year with Baker, or
Gotcha.
not whatever it is. Yeah,
He's going to be 30, 31 or whatever, and he's injured every year, and he's like 15 spots higher on that list than Ayuk. So I would definitely be higher on Ayuk. And I agree with yes, I'm fine with this. Whoever Shanahan's wide receivers are, I'm always going to be fine with. Let's just put it that way. Even his running back.
Yeah, I would too. I would say it's a little concerning. It would be 2 off seasons in a row that he doesn't have any work with Brock,
That's
since he
fair.
probably won't be back until 25. If there are any changes, he did come back and look pretty bad. I just think long term, I mean, obviously it heavily depends on other pieces of the trade, Alex, but I mean, there's no arguing that Ayuk is a better player than Debo
For sure.
now and in the future. So
he had
if you
one
feel
good
like,
game last season before getting injured. So he had the Arizona game where he had 12 targets, caught 8 of them for $147. He did not break 50 yards in any other game, and he
That's
only
pretty
got
bad.
double-digit targets in one other game.
Yeah, it's good. I cannot
yeah,
believe this is the development. I mean, stuff like this happens every offseason, but I cannot believe the Niners are going to be a question mark coming in to my fantasy 2025 season. It's wild to think about.
Even in a 3 wide receiver league, week 5 is the only league you would have wanted to start him. His next best finish was wide receiver 46.
I
And
mean,
that,
yeah, but he came back like right at that time. I mean,
right,
even look at his snap
but that's the thing.
percentages slowly crept up, but
Right, he came back at that. Well, it crept up, but he's at 95%. In the Seattle game, only got 4 targets, right? And these are the games where Jawan Jennings got the workload, and then also, like you said, it's because he didn't have a lot of work with Brock in the offseason. Well, he's not gonna have work in the offseason this year because he got an ACL tear.
Yeah,
well, that's fine. I mean, now that I know that you're willing to trade Ayuk, I mean, I'll just throw out some stuff too. So I'll see
no,
you in
I
about an
think
hour
I think there's going to be some
on the
fantasy
sleeper app.
gold. I think there's going to be some fantasy gold between Purcell, Ayuk, and Jennings. One of those is going to be 1,100 yard, 8, 10 TD receiver. One of them is. I guess here the best way I can sum it up this for me is I'm going to spend 4 or 5 months figuring out this one question. The last 2 years, if you look at all the coordinators that have been gutted on the Niners to other teams around the league, like all of them, that is this just a way that Shanahan's trying to protect Kubiak from leaving, and he actually values Kubiak's help in designing the plays, before, the scripting the first beginning plays. So sum it up, is Shanahan protecting the next like prodigy kid and he doesn't want to lose him to the next to another team, just gutting his staff? Or is something worse happening and the Niners are about to implode? That's what I need to figure out in the next 4 months.
Well, I need to figure this out tonight because I've been putting off the deal with this guy. I've been making excuses. I mean, the excuses I gave were legitimate because I had some funerals to attend, but it's Tom, by the way. I'm sure you know, not you. You don't know Mitch, but Vinny, you know what I'm talking about. So this guy's not the easiest trade partner, but he will either offer you stuff that is completely lopsided in his favor, and you're like, this is a terrible deal. Why would I ever take this? But randomly he'll offer you a deal that's amazing in your favor, and you just got to snatch it up. And
Gotcha.
yeah,
He overthinks it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like trading with Sylvie. So
Well, hey, she had the read on Terry McLaurin. Where's he at on this list?
I can ask
22.
real quick. The other flip side now of where's Debo? Like where I know this is dynasty rankings, but like just for example, like who you drafting next year, Debo or Cooper Cup? Like
Well,
who first? Let's just pretend. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah, well, and also one last, Jawan Jennings down here below
definitely.
Paracel as well. To answer your question, that completely depends on what happens with Matt Stafford. If
He
Matt
signed, I
Stafford, huh?
yeah, Stafford signed.
He
I thought
did.
he signed with
on-
the Rams.
Okay, he did. He did.
The
Okay.
Cup is still on the trade block.
Yeah,
Cup
well,
is still on the trade block.
the finish to
fine.
that sentence was it was going to be Matt Stafford and Cooper Cup. If they are both on the Rams together, I think his value is there. If they are not, it is not. He's another wide receiver I had. I should honestly just bring up my sleeper league and show you how how terrible my wide receivers were. Oh, I gotta log in. Hold on.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say this about Cooper Kupp is he is on my new do not draft list. So if there was someone who laid fat eggs towards the end of the season, including fantasy playoffs, I mean, I want to punch him in the throat a little bit.
Yeah, fantasy playoffs. He had a combined 9 targets with 4 catches and around 53 yards. Was that? Yeah.
Okay, that's a bad comparison. Forget Cooper Cup. Let me say who you drafting next year first, Debo or Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson, like that's not even close.
Okay, I'm being honest. Debo or Lad McConkey.
Lad.
Alex, do you want to weigh in on these? I'm sorry.
Oh, I would definitely.
How about
I
we
would
do
take
this?
Vlad for
How about
sure.
we do this? We'll do like we can speak. How about this? We'll speak when we hear a name that we'll draft Debo over.
Okay. Okay? So Alex, would you draft Garrett and McConkey over Debo?
I mean, McConkey, absolutely. What was the other one?
Garrett Wilson or Debo?
Who is his
Who
quarterback
would you
right
draft
now?
first? We don't know. The Jets don't have one.
Without knowing who his quarterback is, I would take Debo.
Okay.
Oh my God.
No, it's fine. No, I'm being honest. How about Debo or Cortland Sutton? I know what you're saying, Vinny, but I don't know if it's going to work that way. Sutton or Debo? Who do you like better?
I mean, Sutton.
If
Alex?
if I'm looking for a wide receiver 2 that I can start and count on for some points, I want Sutton. If I am playing like, not that this is a strategy, but if I was playing the 0 wide receiver strategy and looking for a home run ball, I would go with Debo. But in a vacuum, I would take Sutton.
Marvin Harrison Jr. or Debo?
Marvin Harrison.
Give me Deebs. I hate Marvin Harrison. I'm
Oh
sorry.
God, that's so brutal.
Jaden Reed or Debo?
Oh man, that's tough.
Zay Flowers or Debo?
Zay
I'll take Zay.
Devontae Smith or Debo?
Smith.
Alex? It's so tough,
That
isn't
one's.
it? I'm being honest.
So
I
here's the
don't
reason.
know what.
I want to give it. My hesitation isn't just about Debo. It's also about Jaden McDaniels because, as we've talked about, rookie QBs who pop off because they're dual threat quarterbacks, defenses get to watch tape on them going into the next season, and it's very different. So if he can still be a star quarterback, then Debo looks a hell of a lot better in my head. Whereas if he comes out and defenses have figured him out, then Debo being his number 2 or number 3 wide receiver is just not going to cut it.
How about the number 2 guy, not Zay, but Bateman or Debo?
Oh, definitely Debo.
Oh, Debo.
Bateman
Okay,
can't hit
so
the ball
there's
that
a-
hits him in the head. So I mean,
Xavier Worthy or Debo?
Debo.
assuming Rasheed Rice
Metcalf.
comes back, give me Debo.
Yeah, I think if I think Kansas City brings somebody in anyways.
DK Metcalf or Debo?
Oh God, I
Oh.
freaking loathe DK Metcalf. Neither.
I'm gonna take DK
I'm
as a
taking my
nostalgia pick.
RB4.
I'll take DK as a nostalgia pick because I have won a chip with him before. I mean, this is years ago, but still.
I'm drafting Kirk Cousins over the two of them.
Okay, how about Jacoby Myers or Debo?
Jacoby.
Give me Jacoby.
Oh my gosh.
You're asking Raiders fans, bro.
Jackson Smith and Jigba or Debo?
And Chigba.
In Jigba.
And Jigba was
I
solid
got-
last year.
I think I got like one more. That's it. But that's what my whole point of this long-winded way is. I can't appropriately rank Debo yet, and that's going to take me a while. I don't know where I'm going to be able to put him. You guys seemed a little bit more confident in your answers than a lot of those. I'm like, I really don't know. Like he's basically, is he going to be a massive value pick? Is he going to be able to be a top 14, 12 wide receiver? Or is he going to completely fall off like Alex was kind of hinting at a little bit? And you're probably going to have to take him where it looks like somewhere in the mid rounds, 4th, 5th. So like, good luck.
Yeah,
That's going to be a winner or a loser.
that's the
How
problem.
many
Like,
how
I don't.
many games did he play last year?
Debo?
Debo.
Let's
He played in 15 games and scored 95 fantasy points in DoD.
You'll see he's on my bench.
Nick
in
Westbrook
this game.
and Akine scored more. Jalen Tolbert scored more. Pickens, Shakir, Cup, Downs, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson, DK, Xavier, Alec Pierce, Puka, Darnell,
51
Mooney,
catches
Rashad
for
Bateman.
670 yards.
Jacoby Myers, Calvin Ridley. Like he finishes. I don't even have enough time to count where he finished.
Hold on, I'm trying to see the passing attempt difference between the two teams last year, so I can give you an actual number. Washington and San Fran. San Fran's 28th passing attempts, and Washington was 12th. So he's going from bottom five passing attempt to a top 12 borderline passing attempt team. That's what the difference is, in my opinion, is just the sheer volume of Debo Samuel in the Cliff Kingsbury offense. He's not going to some bad offense coordinator. Is that offense actually better than the Niners for wide receivers? Is
You assume that
Purdy
Debo is still good at football. I
for
think
sure?
this is the assumption, and I just don't think he is. He was like wide receiver
Oh,
45
I
in
get what you're
DoD.
saying.
You
Sure,
know,
yeah. Okay.
it's so the one thing that I will say is the Commanders have done a much better job of managing their team since they've changed ownership. I don't think that the Commanders would have eaten that big of a contract on a guy they didn't think could still ball, right? Like, yeah, they didn't have to give up much for him, but they didn't give up much for him in the way of pick capital, right? But they did give up a lot in cap space they could have used on the defensive side of the ball where they really struggled last year. So the fact that they're saying, hey, instead of taking this 16 million or whatever the number was and spend it on defense on one or two quality key pieces there, we're going to throw it into a wide receiver for our young QB. That tells me they think this guy can still ball out because it's not like they didn't have it's not like they're like, hey, we really need to get a veteran wide receiver for our young QB. They already have that with Terry McLaurin, right? So like this play to me by the Commanders, you either have to say the Commanders believe he's still got something left, or the Commanders are just a bad front office, which they kind of feel like a good front office now compared to what they have been in the past.
Alex, I actually completely agree with you. This is like okay, so for me, it's going to come down to if this is all for Purdy. So, for example, this could just be poor timing that the Niners would really like to keep Debo again, but they know with this contract of Purdy. So, the Niners are like eighth most cap. They're not over the cap, but they're right there. So, like, they are cap stranded. It makes sense because they have such a talented roster. So, if this is just purely like we actually financially can't afford Debo, but we know the quality he is because we're gonna have to re-sign Purdy. So if Purdy gets a big deal, then I'm instantly gonna move Debo. Hopefully, no one listens to this podcast to one of my sleepers for the season because the only reason he left was timing of the Niners being over the cap and having to pay Purdy coming up. Redskins, the Commanders are in that gap period right now with like the Seahawks had, where they can go out and just pay all these players because Russ is overperforming as a third round salary, not even a first round salary, a third round. I know McDaniels is a two overall pick, but you have to capitalize while McDaniels is on this rookie stuff. So why not go out and pay these guys now? Because in 4 years, you're going to have a massive cap hit. So if the Niners are just in a timing spot right now to where they are at the end of their window closing, they've been to a lot of Super Bowls, they've paid a lot of good players, they have a lot of contracts eating up salary, and here comes their next quarterback that they're going to give 40 plus million dollars to. The minute Purdy signs like a 38 plus million-dollar contract, I know the answer to this question. It wasn't that Debo is bad, it's the timing of the Niners versus the timing of the Commanders having their QB on that contract. So,
Yeah, but then they literally looked at their entire roster and said, "Who the hell can we get rid of and feel
well,
good
maybe
about it and be just
yes.
and compete?" And it's
That's
Debo.
true. That's true, but maybe it's like Debo's contract because these wide receivers, it never used to be until the last couple of years that these positional players are creeping into quarterback territory. Like Chase and JJ and CD Lamb are at 41 right now. That was like a massive 10, 12 million increase from the last highest paid or whatever. You get what I'm trying to say, the top paid wide receiver. So I think maybe they don't know what Debo's market is if other GMs think he's that good that he could be upwards to that type of money. And that's what they're saying is we either get rid of Debo, the one guy, or we get rid of three other guys that we've given big contracts to, like a Trent Williams or a Varner or whatever. So it's just that's what I agree with you, Vinny. But I don't. I'm saying I don't know the answer. But once Purdy signs, if Purdy signs a $22 million contract, then I'm staying away from Debo like a black plague. And you're right. But if Purdy signs 38 north of 38, I'm Debo's one of my sleepers for 2025.
Trivia question. Do you know who the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history is?
CD Lamb at 41.
Max Crosby after his extension today.
Oh, today. Gotcha. I didn't know that. So he passed CD Lamb. What's Crosby
Uh,
making? 43, 42?
it's a 3-year, $106.5 million with 91 guaranteed. I'm not sure to what extent it's the highest paid non-QB, if it's highest in guaranteed money or if it's average salary, but
Gotcha.
I've just seen headlines all over the place that said uh,
Yeah,
highest
that's why
paid non-QB.
that was the whole thing of last year's offseason was Lamb resigning, and he finally resigned late in the summer with for 1 million more than Justin Jefferson got. just a just a little gotcha, JJ. Well, now Zach Crosby's probably like got both of you. So, well, yeah, but I'm just saying that's what I'm saying is these, and that's why the Cowboys are having trouble with Micah Parsons because the NFL is with the cap expansion and like the massive increase that it's had again, 8% or whatever. Like these positional players are somehow getting paid close to QB money, which has never really happened in the last 15 years. So Micah Parsons, yeah, Crosby, these guys are demanding these maybe closer to 40, which if Debo gets 30 even, that's insane. You could probably go get three Pro Bowlers for that price. So once again, I'm repeating myself. Whatever Purdy signs for, that will tell me the answer.
Yeah, all I know it is yeah. There's the contract game is so interesting. Um, I was just also thinking about how like T. Higgins got franchise tagged, and there's no way that they pay him $27 million this year, like averaging between the top five wide receiver contracts. I think they did it just to lock him in so he couldn't sign anywhere else,
For sure.
and then they'll
We'll
negotiate his
trade him.
contract, kind of
Oh, they'll
moving, yeah, or trade
renegotiate
him.
it. Yeah, I
Yeah,
gotcha.
I think so. I mean, because then they'll save money. Um, but yeah, it's
So you're saying they
interesting.
didn't
I
even do
mean,
that with Debo, is what you're saying? They didn't even try that? That's interesting to
I
you?
just
Just
yeah, I'm just saying like
bailing on him?
I just don't think Debo was if you actually want like last I don't know how you play 15 games, you finish as wide receiver 45 in fantasy, and
On
everybody's
the
supposed to
Niners
be like
offense, on Shanahan's
with
offense.
yeah, then with Ayuk down and Purcell out for half the season, you're outshone by
And
Gang,
McCaffrey's
and
gone
then
too.
you have a backup running back in there, so you
Should have been
know
all him. Yeah.
it should have been all Debo and I mean you watch the highlight tape. I don't know how many drops he had, but I don't think it looked good, you know. So
All right, well, you guys can
and I don't
let's
think Jaden
I got
Daniels is like I don't think Jaden Daniels is a guy that can support a wide receiver too.
he
Not
almost
to the
did with
point.
Noah Gray, right? I thought he almost tied on, yeah.
Not to the point of like relevance. I don't think he's going to revive a Debo to be great, you know?
Gotcha.
So just I just don't see the upward potential there.
Well,
Jaden
also at the
Daniels is
same
not
time,
throwing for 4,500 yards and 40 touchdowns. Like, that's not
but
what he
also then
does.
you
It's
look.
not why he's so good.
Sure, I agree, but also look at the value too. It's like look where they have all these play. I know it's super early, but everyone has got Debo ranked so low. If you can get him in the sixth round for a top 24 wide receiver, that's huge.
You guys just
So
said
like,
you'd draft him over Marvin Harrison and Garrett Wilson. Like, it's
no,
crazy
I said I'm
talk.
not. I said I'm not 100% on a lot of them. I don't know where to rank them, but if his value goes to the sixth round, doesn't mean I have to draft Debo in the third or the fourth. I can get him in the sixth, is what I'm saying, or seventh, because of where he's being drafted. That's all I'm saying is there's a lot of value to a guy who could potentially actually still be the same Debo on a better pass volume offense that you can trust. Maybe not trust Jaden in his second year, I guess. Alex has got a great point there. But that's all I meant was is someone in the sixth or seventh round is gonna can get an upside player of craziness. That's all I meant. Like if you're drafting wide receivers in the sixth, seventh round, you know what I mean, and you see Debo Samuel sitting there, like that's gonna be hard to pass up. Especially if you're Cameron or Adam.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Just kidding.
context matters too, right? Like that's true. People that are going to go on name brand,
Right.
but context matters. Right? It's also like it's what does your team need and what's available. Like the Court and Sutton thing you said earlier. Like I said, if I get into those later rounds and like I've already got my home run wide receiver or a home run running back or
Yeah.
whatever, and I just need a guy who's going to go out there and get me 8 to 10 points a game. A guy I can rely on to play decent. I'm going to go for a
Yeah.
Cortland Sutton. Whereas if I'm like, you know what? I kind of went the zero RB strat. I'm kind of hit or miss in a lot of places. I need a guy who can hit another home run for me. I'm going to take the risk on Devo.
Sure. And I think a lot of the comp, yeah, that's true. I think a lot of comp that my mind keeps going is Devontae Smith. I just don't know why. It's like Devontae Smith could be a league winner or he just disappears. I just don't understand him at all. So, yeah, no, it's interesting. And we have plenty of time. This is all super early, so I'm sure there'll be stuff out of camps where you'll be like, "Oh, Debo's with the ones getting scripted plays," and or Ayuk's looking real good. You know what I mean? And then all the value goes away anyway. So it's too early. What else we got?
All right, Alex. I mean, we can either. I'll put it up for a vote. Do we want to stick to like fantasy football relevant topics, or do we want to maybe mix it up a little bit?
No, let's
Do
mix it
whatever.
up. Let's. It's not. I mean, this started as a fantasy football podcast. We'll talk a lot about fantasy football. There was some football stuff, but we've kind of talked for 45 minutes about Tebow Samuel. So let's change it up for the anyone who might still be listening. You had some stuff you wanted to chat about. Uh, I've complained
Yeah.
about
So this
Luca,
is
so go ahead.
yeah. Go over to the ESPN tab for a second, and that you've got pulled up. Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So I wanted to do this early on, and obviously we stayed kind of fantasy football centric, and you guys each have about 15 to 30 seconds per uh, question that I have to justify your answer. And yeah, I think as we kind of set the stage moving forward. So I want to play a game called Is It a Sport? And we are going to go through all of the sports that are listed here, from major sports down to maybe some more obscure sports. And I would love to hear opinions on is it a sport? This is something that I've wanted to play with Alex and Mitchell forever, especially because I know Alex has some very strong thoughts on this. So actually, if you stay on the,
Oh, I want to go
yeah,
back to it,
okay,
but
yeah,
first we'll define sport here. An activity
okay,
involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or team competes against another or others for entertainment. So, an activity involving physical exertion and skill in which you compete.
you thought about this. You have this. You knew what that definition was. Okay, all right.
I didn't, but I
So
am happy that it turned out the way I thought.
it did. It did. It just like catered right into you a little bit. All right. So just kind of going down the list. NFL. Is it a sport?
I mean, absolutely. It takes a ton of physical exertion. You see people leave it out on the field all the time.
All positions. Would you consider all positions being those that play sports? Because you could technically say that the kicker doesn't really have much physical exertion there.
Have you ever seen Pat McAfee's highlights? That man is on his horse. All right.
Okay.
You ever seen Seabass make a tackle? Sebastian Janikowski. That
Yep.
man had to
Mhm.
run. When you kick off the ball, you got to run 60 yards down the field to make a tackle. At least you used to. And obviously, a great display of skill. There are 32 people in the world who get starting NFL kicking jobs, and those people don't usually keep them because there's always someone coming up that outcompetes them because it's a super skill based. If you start missing some, this year alone, we started talking about how bad Justin Tucker was when he was the most accurate kicker of all time prior to this year. So,
Okay.
physical exertion check,
Mitch.
skill check, absolutely.
Mitch, any objections to if the NFL and football is a sport?
No, I think the NFL is one of the most epitomes of a sport because you're one of 22 players, offense, defense, plus special teams. So you're like one of 25 guys who affect the outcome of the game. That's like the definition of sport to me. You have to work together. You have to be a team. You have to have a, you know what I mean? It's like it's like an agenda, a goal. No, that's like the most sport. And as far as kickers, that is an ultimate skill. They have like camps in Australia and New Zealand that are called like NFL camps and they like train kickers. Like that's a huge skill. Like anyone who thinks that kicking's easy, please go ahead, record yourself trying. Please go ahead.
I would just love if we could just sound clip what Mitch just said, that the NFL and football is the epitome of sport. If Martin is listening, it is not gay football. It is a real sport. If anything, it is the epitome of sports. So
I'm guessing
Martin was
Martin is
my
a soccer coach of some kind.
Martin was my
Possibly
seventh
British.
grade club soccer coach who thought it was appropriate to 12-year-old boy or 13-year-old boy. How is gay football going? If you want to talk about how times has changed, that is the area that we lived in.
I think it was even
So,
younger
and this
too.
is,
He definitely called it gay rugby while like we were in like seventh grade summer, eighth grade or whatever.
yeah.
Definitely
And,
earlier
and this
than
is after
that.
I quit.
Oh,
This
is
is
that how old
after
we
I,
are? 12, 13? I
this is,
forget.
yeah,
Sorry.
this is after I quit soccer to play American football. And it was, how is your gay football going? Was the question that I received. So,
Well, I
um,
mean, I gotta ask if any of the viewers want to know.
ha-
7 shoulder surgeries later, was it worth it to make that change?
actually, yes, I got hurt in baseball. So,
Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
okay,
it was.
okay.
And
Anyway,
if anybody ever watched me play soccer/football, it did not go
all
well
right,
in
let's
that
get back on
sport.
track.
So
You tell me a short
okay,
Italian is not the ideal build for soccer? Never
yeah,
guessed.
no,
All right.
and no foot skills whatsoever. All right, NBA, is it a sport?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Uh, Not necessarily the way all the players play, with all the way they rest, but basketball itself, like not the NBA, but basketball itself, absolutely a sport. Anyone who's ever tried to play a game of pickup basketball, you absolutely, at the end of that, you were spent.
Okay,
If you play
yeah,
defense. So yeah, it's a sport if you play defense. Because yeah, if you're just playing offense, then no, it's not a sport. The All Star Game's not a sport. But if you play defense, then you're absolutely exerting yourself physically. It takes a high degree of skill to play. Um, so yeah, I would say yes.
I would say
okay,
basketball or soccer, American football is the highest skilled game because these two is just you have to. I mean, hand-eye or coordination is easier than hand-foot coordination, but the thing is, there's no hiding 1 through 5 on the floor. You have to be able to play everyone on the floor. Like if you're Jamar Chase, you don't have to go against like Aaron Donald. I know that's a lazy comparison, but I'm just saying like you have to be able to guard, defend, play against all types of players. I know you're not going to go up against a center if you're a point guard, but it's still a wider version of the amount of talent you have to have. I think NBA players are the most overall talented. I know there's corners and stuff like that and running backs like Saquon in the NFL that would love to have this debate, but I think overall basketball players are the best athletes. Maybe not the most
oh
skilled, but
wow,
the
okay,
best athletes. Yeah.
interesting. All right,
They're also
NHL
giants.
hockey.
Yeah.
Hockey, is it a sport?
Oh, for sure.
Oh,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
agree.
Well, and here I'll back it up. So, do you know what the average? So, a hockey game is played in 3 periods, 20 minutes each. So it's a 60-minute game. Do you know what the average time on ice is? We talked earlier about how Kyrie was up to 40 minutes per game. That's out of 48 minutes, by the way. Hockey's a 60-minute game. You know what the
It's
average
like
time on ice is for a hockey
14,
player?
16 minutes, 14,
Is it like
16.
12? Yeah, I was gonna say like 12.
Yeah, the league leader's at 27, so it's
Oh,
usually
wow.
between 20 and 27. But the point is,
Yeah.
less than
Oh wow,
half
it's
the
way
game
higher
on
than
the
I thought.
ice because they're exerting themselves so much. Sometimes they're doing 90-second shifts. They're on the ice for 90 seconds, then back off because they're having to exert themselves so much. And a game of skill, if have you ever tried to skate, let alone use a hockey stick and a puck? Have you ever tried to just skate? That's hard enough. Now you have to manipulate a puck, which is not a ball, by the way, so it does some weird stuff. There's boards that it can bounce off of. There's people trying to take your head off. I mean, if hockey's not a sport, nothing is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not
I agree.
qualified to talk about the skill of hockey, but Alex, have you ever played NHL 2K24 and left the line in longer than 90 seconds? You're gonna get a goal scored on you. All your players are so bad. You have to
Yeah.
call lots of line changes. No, that's great. You have also one of the biggest like when you go see a sport, like the NFL is so incredibly fast. That's the first thing you notice. The NBA, it's so incredibly skilled and how tall they are. That's the first thing you notice. And hockey, like when I went to Kings games, especially 2011 to 2014 when they were winning the titles, like that game is so violent. You have no idea how violent that game is until you actually go to one of those games. And it's like I did because you a lot of times you're watching on puck on screen a lot, but you're not watching on puck when you're at the game. And it's just like it's pretty brutal. It's definitely a culture.
Yeah, no, I agree. I,
Hockey's
I would I would put I don't think NHL translates well to other sports, but it's really hard to beat the amount of physical exertion plus eye-hand coordination that is required for
And
for hockey.
I will give the caveat for me personally. I think skill is the biggest impact on, like, yes, physical exertion is a part of it. Like, because I actually was going to ask if esports was a sport. We'll get to that later. So like, physical exertion is a part of it for sure. But the biggest,
I'm gonna love that debate.
To me, the biggest indicator of sport is skill. It's something that the average person cannot do at a high level. That's what that's important to me. And I think if you put the average person in a pair of ice skates, handed them a stick,
we're in
and
trouble.
put a puck on the ice, they would have zero chance of scoring a goal. Whereas if I were to give an average person a soccer ball and tell them to kick it at the net, they probably wouldn't score, but they have a much higher chance. Now, this is assuming there's a goalie, right? Empty net, different.
What about taking a basketball and putting it in a hoop? Which one's easier?
Right, same thing. If I hand you a basketball at the free throw, I mean, if I give you a ball at the free throw line, what, like, even the best players in the world, what do they average from the free throw line? You know what I mean? Like,
well, it depends
92%?
who categorizing as the best player in the world, because I would also say 60% for guys like Shaq.
that's what I'm saying. Like, if they're bigs or small. Anyway,
I thought you meant the best free throw
that's the point that I'm
shooters.
making. The point that I'm making is, like, it's a very low percentage thing. So that these guys can do it on a consistent basis is insane. Like, Connor McDavid is unreal. I hate him, not as a human, but just because he plays for Canada and plays on a Canadian team. But, dude's unreal on the ice. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, here we'll
Okay, go on. Sorry.
no. In order to get to him, we gotta go. We gotta pick it up a little bit. Soccer.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I would argue soccer is the
Any
second
question?
most sport. No, I think soccer is the second behind football is the most ultimate team sport.
As someone who used to be a referee for youth soccer, watching those kids play, and then I've actually seen Messi play live, the amount of skill involved in the difference there is insane. And obviously the physical exertion, like, oh my God, they're running for 90 minutes straight. It's crazy. Like, and there's not even a clock, because, like, the clock, like, it counts up, not down.
It's
you don't even know when
imaginary.
it's to end. So
Yeah.
No, I think from here. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say one thing that's like, I mean, this is just coming from a soccer fanatic myself, but you're talking about how much ice time you get in a hockey game. How much time do you think in a 90-minute game do you actually have the ball at your feet? I think the next
Not
gen,
much, but
it's like 4
the
minutes.
kilometers that they run is crazy.
Exactly. You literally run, touch the ball, one touch, two touch, run, touch. You might dribble some every now and then and have it, but the most you'll have it, I think the top players have it for like close to 4 minutes, the ball at their feet for a total of 4 minutes of the game. Like, that's wild. So Vinicius Jr. will get like 3 or 4 or 5 attempts to go one-on-one, but everything else is just you get the ball, pass it off, get the ball, touch it, trap, touch, go 1-2, 1-2, ones or even one touch. That's all it is. So it's like you have to have a team. You have to have, like, Pep Guardiola had it best, with the tiki-taka triangles. Like, what's his name from the Netherlands? Louis van Gaal also had a great revolutionary style. But, like, even Mikel Arteta's new style is pretty good. But I'm saying it's like you have to have a team concept. Otherwise, you're just kicking the ball and running. And it's like, then you're basically AYSO soccer.
Also, one of the definitions of sport is, one of it was to compete or entertain people. The fact that the most popular sport in the world has games that end like this, 1-0, or even 0-0, and, like, they're still exciting, like, that tells you all you need to know. Soccer's a sport. Moving on.
Yeah. You mean I like how when you said AYSO, it's basically how the United States plays in every single World Cup is, can
That's
we just
how
bomb it
MLS
over the top and
plays,
hope we
too,
get
yeah.
it? It's so hard to watch. It's so hard
like
to watch.
field position soccer. It's like just keep kicking it and
That's one of the
send
reasons
players.
that Messi looked so good. It was in an MLS match. It was Messi, Jordi Alba, and Suarez all on the field at the same time for Miami.
Yeah, that's
Like,
insane.
all right, it's like we've got the number one goal scorer in the history of Uruguay, multiple World Cup wins. The number one goal scorer in the history of Argentina, multiple World Cup wins. And then Jordi Alba used to be the captain of Team Spain, multiple World Cup wins. Like, yeah, it seems decent.
They also have Busquets, right? And isn't Busquets is like Spain's top 3 players of all time? Like, it's insane.
They didn't have him when I went to that game, but they have
Oh,
since
gotcha,
acquired
gotcha.
Busquets. Yeah,
Gotcha, sorry. It's just not fair.
yeah. Anyway,
All right,
All
next
right,
one.
so baseball.
yeah, baseball. I think the core four are all sports without issue. Baseball is very much a game of skill. It may not take the same level of physical exertion as the others, but there's still an element of physicality when it comes to, hitting and fielding. But the biggest thing is just the element of skill involved and being able to,
Uh-huh.
throw and catch. Like hand-eye coordination. Hand-eye coordination is important in every sport, but if you don't have good hand-eye coordination in baseball, you just can't play it, right? Like
And
you,
they do, yeah, they do say one of the hardest things to do in all of sports, and it's kind of
Talking
a
about
consensus
fastball.
yeah, is hit, and especially nowadays, it's like 100 mile an hour slider slash two seam. So,
yeah, go
I
in a
still think,
batting cage and turn it up to whatever the highest setting is.
Past 85
That's
is
still
scary.
20 miles per hour slower than what they pitch in major leagues, and you're gonna have trouble hitting it.
Yes, I'm saying
yeah,
like I think I've been in a batting cage that went up to like 80 or 85 or whatever,
Yeah.
and that was like the scariest thing I've done in ever. Not happening. Okay,
yeah.
as far as sport, let's go back to what are we, 1996, 97. I used to pitch for one named Nolan Sparks, and I used to pitch a lot for that team, a couple teams, 2 years in a row. And every time I would pitch six or I think it was 5 or 6 innings because we only played 7 innings, and all Vinny or Adam or Brent Branson or Corey Ventura or any of you had to fucking do for sorry for my language for 1 inning was close out 3 outs. And every time I pitched, I would come out and either be like 2-1, 1-2, 1-0. I'm not saying I had the lead every time or we were never blowing anyone out because we didn't have a good enough batting order to
We're
put up
terrible.
to put up 7 points. But it was always like 1-2, 2-1, and then you send in Vinny or then you send in Adam or any of these guys, and it would end up being like 5-1 or whatever every single time to the point where I'm like, I don't want to play with my friends anymore. I went to this guy named Coach Blue, no joke, can't even make it up. He told me as a 12-year-old that he wasn't going to play me in the outfield because he was going to pitch me so much that he was going to pitch me, then have me sit for 3 games in a row, then pitch me and sit at 12 years old. And my dad came down and he's like, yeah, my son's quitting baseball, so you can't have him this year. And I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm quitting baseball. And that was 3 years from fifth grade to eighth grade. And I'm telling you what, I'll be honest with you, I did not have the mentality for being a pitcher. Like you're supposed to like give up like 1 or 2 hits a game, and I just couldn't stand it. Like Corey or sorry, Walker Moore, if you remember who he was in my private school, and Jordan Lowe. I went to school with them, and they would hit a home run off of me on Saturday or whatever, and Monday it would be like, oh, I went 1 for 4 on Mitch, but one of them was a home run. I'd be like, you mother F! Like I hated pitching. I hated all of it. I don't care if you call baseball a team sport. I don't care what you do. I don't. I'm just kidding. No, baseball was a lot
All
of
right,
fun growing up with the
all right
guys. It's
let's
the
keep moving
ultimate
this along.
sport.
I assume there's going to be some more
Yeah.
controversial ones than just saying the major American sports.
I know.
All
I know.
right, all
I
right.
know.
So here, go ahead and just hover over the more sports bar. I think it'll have a drop down of other things you can click on
I
to the
want to do
right.
them. Yeah, the esports one. That's the great argument.
All right, I'll kind of like pick and choose here a little bit. I think a hot topic. We're just gonna go right for it. Golf.
No, not a sport.
I don't think golf
Easy
is a
answer.
sport.
So
Okay.
so
So here's my argument
hold
though.
on.
You just said.
You
Okay, go ahead.
I get to give my argument
go.
first.
I haven't.
So
Yeah.
my argument is, I told you that skill was a big part of it. If I go out starting today and I golf every day for a year, I can shoot par. If I go out right now and play basketball every day for a year, I would still get absolutely demolished if I went to my local playground and guys that just hoop. Like straight, well, I say playground, but you know what I mean, like a local court. Like Mitch goes and used to go and play at the courts, where we live. Like I would get destroyed if I went and tried to play with those guys. I'm just not good enough. I don't have the physical acumen. I don't have the skill set, even practicing for a year. Whereas with golf, it's so much more lackadaisical. There's no one defending you. No one can stop you. It's just you out there doing it. It's all you only play golf when there's nice weather. So there's no weather concerns. You don't have to be in great shape. Look at John Daly. That dude was as big as I am, and he was clapping it out there. Like golf is just, can you be there mentally? And I think if I played every day for a year, I could shoot par. I'm not going to because I don't want to play golf, but that is absolutely an option that I have. And I don't think that's an option playing other sports.
Um,
I just highly disagree with that take. I mean, I respect it. I just think the way that they set up courses to be a professional, the way that they set up the course, how difficult it is, I don't think that you could play nonstop for the next 10 to 15 years and score par on a tournament level course.
do you think
Um,
could you imagine John Daly and LeBron James standing next to each other? Like the differences in conditioning, like athleticism, like the ability to be that size and be considered one of the best at your sport is actually insane. But the real reason why I would say it's not is because you're not playing against another person. Like for me personally, I wasn't that great offensively in soccer. I couldn't take players one on one. I definitely had situational jukes in the middle of the field, blah, 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 blah. But my ability to affect it was defense. I was good at stopping and containing a lot of teams' other better players. That there in golf, how does someone like that exist? How does what's his name Williams from the Celtics, who's one of the best on-ball defenders, but doesn't really shoot all that much? How does he have a job or a spot in a sporting world of golf? You're not playing against another person. That's my only concern with it. Is golf incredibly freaking hard that is so frustrating? Absolutely. Does it require tremendous amounts of skill? Yes, and it requires crazy mental ability too. Maybe comparatively to other sports like soccer, you just run next play, basketball, next shot. Who cares if you missed? Like, so I get like you can't recover from some hits on the golf course. I get that, but there's no person to person. It's you versus the course, and does someone do the course better than you? That's my issue with
Yeah,
sport on
I
this one.
think that's why I think it's a leisure activity, right? Because like, yeah, I'm not saying there's no skill involved in
Oh,
golf. I'm saying that there's less skill involved in golf than in other sports. In my opinion, it's a hot take, it's controversial, whatever. But in my opinion, there's less skill involved in golf than there is in other sports. And like Mitch said, there's no one guarding you, right? So like, if you're good enough, you're not competing with anyone but yourself, right? Like, yes, there are other people playing, and your scores are compared to theirs, but you're not actually competing with other people. You're just, hey, as long as I don't hit a bad shot, I will be fine. Whereas you can be 100% shooter, like that doesn't exist. But let's say there's 100% shooter in the NBA. It doesn't matter if you can't get your shot off because the guy's got 100% block rate. Now I understand those two players don't exist, but what I'm saying is like your talent, your ability to get open and create the shot is just as important as being able to shoot the shot in basketball. Whereas in golf, all that matters is whether or not you can hit the ball. And so I just, for that reason, to me, it is not a
I
sport.
agree, Alex. I just don't know if I'd go as far as calling pro golf leisure. That's all I would say. That's the only spot I'm going to disagree because the amount of dedication, time, mental, and skill involved is so beyond what I think I could ever get
The
to. Like,
biggest
yeah,
tournament that they have in their sport, the club it's played at, club where it's played,
yeah.
doesn't allow female members. That tells me all I need to know about whether or not this is a sport or a leisure activity for the wealthy.
Especially if you've ever been golfing behind your father and Daryl and Vinny's father at a community golf event.
yeah. Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, I kind of wish that maybe the NBA also took that stance, but that's a conversation for a different day.
Sure.
Um,
You think the NBA shouldn't
I
allow
mean,
women? Not cool, man.
I think it's an absolutely garbage product.
Oh,
Screw
it's
it.
insane.
How do we think about women's basketball? Is women's basketball
We
a
did
sport?
not
Hold
go
on,
from
hold
is this
on.
a sport or not to women's
I wasn't talking
basketball.
about Penny. I'm not talking about women's golf. I'm saying women aren't allowed to be a member at the club. That's like saying women can't go to a Laker game because they're not allowed in the Staples Center. Is what you're saying? Like that's what I'm saying. Like women can't go and play on the court because they're women. Like that's a totally different
Vinny,
argument. That's not a
I
conversation
just
I'm looking to have here. The point that I'm making
Samantha's
is
Samantha's friends are yeah.
anything you have
Sorry.
to do where I have to wear my khaki pants and my collared shirt, and I have to make sure I'm well kept and show up and clean shaven and all this and look all frilly. And women can't play here or be members here, and have someone else carry my bags for me. That's right. In golf, they don't carry their own equipment; they have a guy carry it for them. And I mean, it's
Here.
not a sport. It's not a sport. I'm
I
sorry, it's
just
not a
want to
sport.
I just want to be really clear here, Vinny, and especially to if Samantha occasionally listens to this, because we definitely had this conversation. Um, I am fully for like a female who like in high school instead of being in with the wrong crowd wants to work really hard at being a volleyball player, play with her friends, soccer player, basketball player, all the above. You work a lot harder than your peers in high school. You can get a scholarship to better your career at a university. I'm all for collegiate women's sports. College female basketball, 100%. You should be able to work harder and get a scholarship and go to a university and set yourself up, for a career and financially that you maybe couldn't have done academically. I'm all for that. But if we're talking professional sports, I have a completely different opinion that probably is similar to yours, and I don't want to put it
when
on
the
tape.
Olympics is on, you don't watch any of the women's sports. Is that what you're telling me?
Oh, I do. I do.
Well,
And
then you just blew out your own argument, right?
But no, but at the same time, well, one of my things I used to love was women's soccer, but when they put on the USA jersey, I don't watch women's soccer like at all during the year or over the 4 years. I watch some women's college soccer occasionally. I'll watch the Final Four, and because I like watching CIF, men's and women's high school soccer because I'm a weirdo. But I watch CIF soccer every single time it's on YouTube that I follow or whatever. So I'm not trying to be hypocritical there, but once you get to pro women's soccer, I have no interest whatsoever.
Yeah, once it becomes for entertainment purposes only, I'm like, well, then entertain me.
You lose me.
And
Yeah, you've lost
yeah,
me. But
um,
like to see like some of these I
But
mean I'm
this
37 right now, I'm not
debate we're
trying to be
having
weird,
is
but
whether or
like
not something is a sport. That doesn't mean it's not a sport just because you're not entertained.
that's
Because
true.
the
That's true.
definition was competes against
Is
another
women's golf
or
a
others
sport?
for entertainment. So there has to be someone has to be entertained,
Skill.
but there are some people that
you're
go and
also
watch.
Women's golf.
skill is a big point of that, and I would argue that in women's basketball over the last 20 years,
There's no skill.
skill has only been attributed to maybe like 10 people. So I mean, just watch some Angel Reese highlights and get back to me and tell me how skillful that is. It's
No,
it's
we're so
it's
off
like
topic
watching
now,
a
but
good tryout video that
we're
but
so
like
off
instead of
topic,
like
and I've
hard
been the one
shots,
that's the
it's just the
defender
layup.
of women this whole time. I'm still defending women, but the one thing I will say about, because you brought up college basketball, the thing I hate about women's college basketball is there are so many games that are like 80-30, and it's like I feel so bad for that team. Like,
Yeah, but they get to
there's
go to
5 good
school and get an
teams everyone else.
education.
Yeah, I understand that, but like, how do you go back out there when you're down 37 points at the half? How do you go back out there after halftime knowing you have to do it all over again? There's no 1 foot in the key rule in college. You just got to.
Hey, to Al-
It's like
to
24.
Alex's point, at least they get to go on the court, you know?
Yeah, Alex, this is like 24-hour fitness pickup basketball where Caleb Gervin played, who went to Louisville and played pro overseas. We still showed up the second half to get dunked on. We still did it. It's just so much better than us. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
The fact that in women's basketball, like number one just get like the number one team basically goes undefeated every
Undefeated
year.
every year. Yeah.
And it's like, dude, there's like two good teams. Anyways, okay, we got off topic. Tennis. What about tennis?
oh, absolutely. Speaking of tennis, I've been playing pickleball lately. I played a couple of games with my dad. It was a lot of fun. You guys should play it if you haven't. But no, tennis is a ton of skill, and it's a one-on-one sport where you absolutely have to compete. I think tennis is absolutely a sport. Physical exertion is unreal. I mean, used to they played 5 sets. Now a lot of tournaments only do 3 until the finals, just because 5 sets is so long. It's hours long of running back and forth. So I mean, yeah, tennis absolutely a sport.
I actually, my hot take is that I would argue that tennis is probably the most difficult sport to play from that level. The endurance, the exertion, the mental warfare, because it's like a constant chess match every single point, paired with the eye-hand coordination and like the skill that you need. I just don't think anything puts it all together. I think that is the one sport, in my opinion. Maybe hockey could challenge it. I think tennis is like the hardest thing where you need a lot of different things to align: agility, speed, endurance, hand-eye coordination, mental processing. I just think it's up there. To me it's close to number one on the definition of a sport.
Well, we definitely know tennis. We especially from the Indian Wells tennis tournaments, especially
Which is
all
happening
the
right now, by
years
the way.
all the years I've been very fortunate to go with Alex and the Sparkses and go sit there and watch the games. I'm going to be very hypocritical here. The women's tennis is better than the men's tennis.
Yeah, well, because
So I don't know how to feel on this one.
well, it's because they have rallies, right? Like they have longer rallies because there's a lot more parity, I think. But hilarious once again, blowing your own argument out. But yeah, no, women's tennis is great. Tennis in general is great. It's very fun to watch. It's also fun to watch the crowd, watching the crowd's head bob back and forth in unison. All right, let's keep this moving. Keep this moving.
Yeah, keep going.
All right, go back to the more sports drop down in the black bar there. Let's go with, so we did tennis, WNBA down at the bottom. All right, let's go with any type of car racing.
I was
NASCAR,
waiting for you to ask
F1,
this one. I was waiting for that. This is a tough one.
NASCAR, F1, IndyCar. Let's just go with car racing.
Is it a sport? No.
So the degree of skill in car racing is up there with all the others, in my opinion. Especially like things like IndyCar, where there's a lot more turns and stuff. NASCAR, they're going in a circle the whole time. Still highly skilled. Not knocking NASCAR drivers, but like I think the level of skill involved in auto racing is very very high. Obviously, they are competing with other people. They are trying to entertain. So the only question that comes down to is, do you believe that it is physical? Is there physical exertion to drive a car? I I will argue yes, mainly from the standpoint of endurance. Auto racing is very long, and it's not like, well, yeah, I've road tripped where I've had to drive 5 hours before. Yes, but this is driving 5 hours while at maximum alertness because you're going hundreds of miles an hour with people trying to pass you, you trying to pass people. So to maintain that level of alertness in your body while doing it for 5 hours consecutively, that level of endurance that's necessary, I would say yes, that's physical exertion. Yes, it's skilled. So yes, it's a sport.
Yeah, I tend to just use the bias that I just don't think it's a sport, but fully understand the level of skill. And then, I just did a Google search because I know that from an endurance standpoint, I've heard some crazy things. But they say like in NASCAR that people can burn up to 3,000 calories in a single race. So, I mean, if that's not like the definition of exertion, then, by definition, I'm wrong. I just don't necessarily view racing as a sport. F1 maybe a little more so because I feel like there's more navigation on the skill front. I think there's a lot more skill in the driving. But yeah, I don't know. I think by definition, yes, but like maybe. Frankie Munoz is also a NASCAR driver, so let's just throw that out there. Malcolm in the middle, somehow now a NASCAR driver. Not sure if that changes your opinion at all.
I
I
can't
mean,
help it,
counterpoint,
but
Connor Reeves also tried to do it and he came in last. So, and that was not even in a NASCAR race. That was like a tier down or tier or two down. Um, anyway, yeah, I do think it's a sport. Part of the reason they lose so much weight though is they're having to wear the fire repellent suit that's obviously very hot and there's no AC in those cars and they're out there for hours. So that's part of the reason why
that's my
the
favorite part
sweat
of
equity.
Ricky Bobby. That's my favorite part of Ricky Bobby. People don't understand. He's like, "I'm on fire! I'm on fire!" and he takes off his suit. It's because people who don't really know those suits are fire repellent, and that's like part of them when he gets naked. NASCAR is sport. No, um, I'm just like you're comparing like trying to win in a playoff football game where it's one and done versus NASCAR where you race for points, and I don't know. You are racing against other people, but you have what do you call it? Restrictions on certain things, on like acceleration, certain braking, certain things. You have like all these rules and stuff like that. And it just kind of seems like, are you the best niche at this way of driving or whatever? Instead of like, if you were just all these people were running from the cops, or whatever, how much different would you drive? I don't know. It's just like, uh,
Fun
uh, yeah.
fun fact, more calories burned in racing than a professional burns in a soccer match. Wild stat, but that's apparently the statistics. All right, last one, and then I have to run. Esports. Is esports a sport? It's in the name. It's in the name. It's not in the game. It's not EA Sports. It's in the game. It is esports. It's in the name.
I mean, first of all, some of these games, the strategy in it is way more strategic than any basketball, football, soccer, or baseball game. And I know sports pretty well. There's no physical exertion, but the one thing I will say is it takes a lot of practice and skill, just like a golf thing. The one thing that I will say for me personally, and the reason why I've grown to love FPS shooters so much is because it reminds me of a free throw. When you go take a free throw, you have, basic terms, hips straight apart, the feet, your ergonomics mattered, elbow in, bend the knees. You're looking at the back of the rim, your rhythm each time, doing the same routine. All these things, your ergonomics matter. Why are there like 50-year-old guys who could go in the gym and shoot, 10 for 10 free throws because it's an ergonomic fundamental form thing that you can work on, and you can go and work on it and work on one little thing. Today I'm just going to work on where I put the ball on my fingertips and release it. Tomorrow I'm going to work on my elbow being in. You could do all that. The reason why I think I got so addicted, obviously besides it's fun playing video games, was you work on your ergonomics at your desk between your sitting position, your desk height, all the factors above, your wrist location, the finger on the mouse, elbow location. You work on all these things every day, and it shows, and you become a better FPS shooter. And also in a lot of these games, especially like League of Legends, I'm not even a big guy of, but like Valorant, like a lot of these games, the amount of strategy of where to use util and what to do when hit is insanely fun to follow. So I will stand up for this one. Yes, it might be some nerdy, a little bit, maybe they should go and, do a little bit more exercise type kids, but do not downplay, some of these esports it's just the game, the computer, the games have just gotten so good. And it's like, trust me, Miles and I love talking Valorant strategy. Like there's just like, oh, how do you hit A side with this character who has this abilities, or this character? Oh, well, you don't want to go up against their best shooter here. Like it's endless. It's never nonstop. There's never like, oh, we're doing the same thing over and over. And it's just so much fun. Even Miles yesterday, who is probably going to listen to this because he's one of our best viewers, is like, oh man, I put my elbow in closer to my rib cage and I moved the mouse out further to the right and I tilted my wrist a little bit, and my like all these little ergonomic things, and it's just so much fun. And then not let alone like the sensitivity and all that
All right,
kind of
I'm
stuff.
gonna jump
So
in. I'm gonna jump in here, Mitch.
yeah,
So you guys know, and our listeners may or may not know, I'm a big gamer. I love video games. Grew up playing video games. I still cringe about the Christmas where my parents gave me a Nintendo and I acted like a spoiled brat. I'm so sorry, mom and dad, if you're listening. I love that Nintendo, and I was just a jerk that day. I'm sorry. But yeah, love gaming. So this can be controversial for me to say this. Is esports a sport? No. By definition, esports is not a sport. Does it require skill? Absolutely. As someone who's played a ton of games, as someone who once had a 2-year streak of being undefeated in GoldenEye, I absolutely know how much skill it takes to be good at video games. I also can get crushed now when I play games like League of Legends and Valorant and whatnot. Not that I've played Valorant, but still, a ton of skill, absolutely competition, but the level of physical exertion just isn't there for me. Yes, like you talked about, Mitch. There are now. I will say, to be a professional gamer, it's usually people that are in that key 16 to 21-year-old demographic, because that's when your reflexes are the fastest, and so
100%.
it does require a level of physicality that like once you. That's why Faker is like you. This is like maybe the only esports person you've ever seen is Faker. The reason he is so famous, he's actually been in commercials, is the fact that he keeps winning and he's 28. It's insane that he keeps winning at that age. Like 28, that's young. In football, we talked about earlier how, oh, you're so young at 26 and you're old at 30. Well, in gaming, you're old once you get to like 22. So the fact that this guy's 28 and still going is impressive. But
well, Alex, that's also why Maru, if you type in Maru, that's why he's so famous amongst the whole eastern part of the world, is because you're not supposed to dominate in StarCraft in Korea or any of these past like 21, 22, Maru. And you can type it in if anyone's
I
looking.
did, but it's going to bring up Stardew Valley stuff, so it's not
Yeah,
worth
just type in Mario SC2 or whatever. And yeah, so yeah, that's him. So like the reason why he's so famous is because you're not supposed to be winning that late as well because of the reflexes. So it's like no, yeah, and like by the way, the GSL, the Korean StarCraft League, is like actually like really popular. And the ability, I'm telling you, I know it's me, I'm not, maybe not, we're getting off, maybe not a sport, but what I will say is like out of all the games to play to try and make professional in, no one ever will have a chance of making professional StarCraft. I promise you right now, no one has a chance. Like even in America, like we send one American in 15 years to compete on the world stage, like, and he's not, his name's Estrella, and he's not even good. He finishes like 32 to the 64 round every time.
That's a cultural thing that's a totally different debate. But just let me get back on the point that I was making. So yes, there's absolutely an element of physicality. The point that I was trying to make with Faker is like this is very rare. It's normally people that are super young that do well in pro gaming. So there is an element of physicality from that standpoint and your quick twitch and your reflexes, but it's just not enough for me to call it a sport. Is it super entertaining? Is it an e-sport? Because like that's like it's. I think e-sport has its own definition, as like its own term. So yes, but as far as like is it an actual factual sport? I'm gonna say no. That doesn't mean that's not me degrading it in any way though. I'm not saying that someone who is a professional StarCraft player is somehow less cool than someone who is a professional,
No, for sure.
volleyball player or whatever. I'm not arguing which one's cooler. The argument that I'm not knocking being gaming. I think gaming has a bad stigma in our country, which it doesn't in others, which is why it's popular in other countries and not here. But anyway,
For sure.
the point that I'm making is there's not enough physical element when you look at that definition, which I don't have on the screen anymore, unfortunately. But the definition, it did list skill, it did list entertainment, but the thing it listed first was physicality, and there's no physicality, at least not enough.
Is there any other sport where someone can walk into that sport with a unhealthy amount of THC and alcohol in their system and outkick their coverage and beat the living daylights out of 3 players who are insanely better than them?
Well, in
Lawrence
my defense,
Taylor, Gilbert Arenas, Ron
I was
Artest.
over that 21-year age mark at that time, right? I was old. You were still 18. I was 21. That was my argument.
Is there another sport where someone literally probably can't even take care of their own bodily functions, but yet can dominate 3 other competitors who are way better than them? I would say no. Listen, here's the thing. I agree. I think it is way up there on the skill level, on the mental level. I don't think it matches the exertion standpoint. I think it's in order for it to fit in sports, you'd almost have to reset and rewire how you think of sports as a whole, right? It's really hard for us to shift our mindset to that it is a sport. I agree there's a high level of skill. It's just it's weird. It's kind of in this in-between category. It's in a category all by itself. It really is. So it's interesting.
What if
You would
in the
have to
next
kind
10
of
years,
rewire your brain and narrative about a sport.
what if esports in the next 10 years turns into the VR stuff?
Well, then you better watch out for the Navy SEAls. That's all
You're
I
just gonna
gotta
play
say.
football in VR, but it's still esports.
Yeah. Silver Snipers is just going to be a whole bunch of retired, special
Navy
ops and stuff.
Yeah.
All right, boys and girls, let's go ahead and wrap
Yeah.
this podcast up. Any final thoughts we want to get out there?
That was good. It's fun.
I got one more.
No,
quick, I got one more quick one on
go ahead.
yours, Vinny. Bowling.
No, not even close. It's like darts. Just throw it with darts.
So like golf, leisure activities. I agree. All right, that's it for us
Oh
today on
my
the
God.
pod. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you next time. Say bye, everyone.
That was a
See ya.
setup. I call bull.